We have enjoyed open-air museums in several locations around the world. They typically display historical buildings that have been gathered to show housing cultures from long ago. This one displays farm homes from the Black Forest in Germany. You will see houses from the 1600s and on that were occupied into the 1900s. Before seeing them, I want to show you a farmhouse from the United States that was built in 1918. This farmhouse was built by my grandparents in 1918 in central Montana, USA. It had a dirt floor and a sod roof. My father, born in 1920, lived in this house until 1936. Now you will see farmhouses that were built up to 300 years before in the Black Forest of Germany. This was a day trip of 75 miles from our home base in Reutlingen, Germany. We had visited the Roman Ruins Museum on the way to the Black Forest. This is the Black Forest Open Air Museum map. The actual name is the name of the farm that was originally on this property. We had a difficult time finding it as our Garmin didn't recognize any of the names that were used. The site has been developed by bringing in various historical buildings from regions of the Black Forest. 9 full farmhouses, a day laborer's cottage, and 15 outbuildings such as mills, sawmills, barns, stalls, a chapel, storehouses, and a granary have been dismantled and reconstructed on this property. The large farmhouses represent different regions, elevations, climates, occupations, and levels of prosperity. 3 of the farmhouses have been added since our visit in 2015. The museum also expanded its grounds by about almost 5 acres as part of this development. This farmhouse was built 427 years ago in the year 1599. This is one of the most important buildings for understanding the museum because it represents the Hohenhaus or Highland House, the oldest documented type of Black Forest farmhouse. The house was constructed with enormous vertical supporting timbers that extended from the ground all the way up to support the roof ridge. This was a practical, extremely strong form of construction suited to the snowy, windy conditions of the high Black Forest. Like many Black Forest farms, it wasn't simply a residence. Farming families often needed to have ways to earn money, particularly during the long winters. Clockmaking and straw weaving became important cottage industries, and the museum uses this house to interpret both. It also has 2 associated outbuildings, the farm chapel built in 1736 and a storehouse built in 1590. This is the farm chapel that was built in 1736. Its presence illustrates the isolation of some of these large mountain farms. Religion was woven into everyday rural life, and a private farm chapel made worship possible without requiring every religious observance to involve a difficult journey from an isolated farm. Throughout Europe, we saw these ceramic heating units in farmhouses and palaces. The fire usually maintained from the other side of the wall, but used to heat an entire room or house. This is the day laborer's cottage. It was built in 1819. The people who lived here didn't own one of the great Black Forest farms. They survived as day laborers, forest workers, and weavers. The great farmhouses tell us how prosperous landowning families lived. This little cottage tells how the rural working poor lived. And here we see the interior of the day laborer's cottage. This farmhouse was built in 1730 and came from an exceptionally high elevation. Farms in this area tended to be small, so farming alone wasn't enough to support a family. People supplemented their income with handicrafts. One important occupation was woodworkers who produced ordinary household objects such as wooden spoons, utensils, and bowls. The museum has recreated such a workshop inside this house. Please notice the rock wall. As you will see on the next slide, you can walk between it and the exterior wall of the house. This house has a special insulating passage running between the exterior wall and the living quarters. You notice also that the roof comes down to the exterior wall. This is particularly valuable architecturally because it is the last surviving example of a Zartan house, retaining its original arrangement of rooms. It continued to be used agriculturally until 1976. There is an important preservation point here also. The museum did not try to return the entire building artificially to 1737. It retained alterations made by generations of owners. The stable, for example, had been remodeled in 1956. Regarding the preservation versus reconstruction issue, a building can tell the story of change through time rather than being frozen at the date it was first constructed. This house reconstructed from 1756. Unlike the other historic farmhouses, this one has never been moved. It was built on this very spot in 1612, still stands on its original site. It became the first building of the open-air museum when it opened to visitors in 1964, and the entire museum takes its name from it. The little sitting room used by the elderly farm couple remains approximately as it was when the last resident left in 1965. This is the Knock and Drop sawmill, built in 1673, an early water-powered sawmill in which the turning water wheel repeatedly lifted and dropped the saw mechanism. Its distinctive knocking and dropping action gave the saw its name. It allowed Black Forest farmers to turn large logs into boards and timbers with water power rather than laborious hand sawing. This is the farm mill, built in 1609. It was the farm's own small grain mill and primarily ground rye. Amazingly, the museum still operates it. The machinery is demonstrated several times a day. Separate storehouses protected a farm family's valuable supplies from dampness, pests, and the ever-present danger of fire in the main farmhouse. Besides this one is a traditional screw press. Turning the large wooden screw forced the press downward into the stone basin. The extracted liquid then drained through the small openings at the bottom. This 1608 farmhouse gives us another opportunity to show how Black Forest houses differed from one region to another. Its lower level is masonry and contains the stable. A timber-framed upper story contains the living quarters. The agricultural work and storage section adjoins the house. It also has a wonderfully peculiar feature called literally the nut floor. It is a hollow mezzanine between the ceilings of the living rooms and the floor of the loft above. It was used for drying nuts and storing tools. We did not see this one in 2015. This is the little castle of Effringen. It was dismantled and transferred to the museum between 2015 and 2017 and opened to visitors for the 2018 season. It isn't the stereotypical enormous Black Forest farmhouse. Its origins go back about 600 years. Construction of the substantial three-story stone residence with a tower began in the late 14th century. It served at various times as a manor or administrative residence, later became a farmhouse. The museum says rebuilding of an earlier structure began in 1379, creating a substantial three-story manor with a tower. Over its long history, it functioned as an estate steward's residence, a manor house, and eventually a farmhouse. Its final occupants left in 1972, and the museum has reconstructed rooms based partly upon their memories and family photographs. This farmhouse was built in 1775. It is the newest major historic house addition to the museum and opened July 2nd, 2023. It is a half-timbered wine grower's house built in 1775 in a wine village. It was dismantled and transferred to the museum between 2021 and 2023. Unlike the great farmhouses where people, animals, hay and farm activities were often combined under one enormous roof, this house was purely a dwelling. The animals and agricultural equipment were kept in separate outbuildings. The museum added a reconstructed barn to create the complete wine growers farm ensemble, as well as a wine tavern. The Black Forest is not only associated with Black Forest cake, Black Forest ham, and cuckoo clocks, but also with the Bolenhut. An essential part of the Black Forest costume is the pom-pom topped hat. This hat consists of 11 handmade pom-poms. 14 pom-poms altogether, but only 11 are visible. The hat can weigh up to 2 kilograms and comes in the colors red and black. Unmarried women wear a red hat. Once married, they wear a black hat. The origins of the hat and the appropriate dress can be traced back to the mid-1700s. These days, the traditional Black Forest costume can only be seen at special events, and then only in certain towns. The pigtails have been added just for tourists. So this was an interesting one-day day trip out of Reutlingen to 2 interesting sites, and we're on our way back to home base, Reutlingen.